Hi, I'm Rachel Andrews. Welcome to Everyday Athlete. First off, a big welcome to my new subscribers this week. We hit the 200 mark. I'm really chuffed with that. So thanks for joining me. And if you're not already subscribed, you'll see there's a little button at the bottom of the image that you can click on. It'd be great to have you along. That way you can see lots and lots of videos that I've already made about open water swimming. Come join the party. On this week's video, I thought I'd take a look at my most recent training swim, in which something really weird happened with the tide, and I thought it warranted a bit of investigation. A nice sunny day after the rainy yesterday. It is of course the start of the summer holidays, so you can expect a bit of rubbishy weather. I'm on my way down to one of my favourite swim spots, which is Calshot, and conveniently it is about a 4-kilometre loop going all the way around the spit. So that is what I'll be doing today. I'm feeling a little lacking in motivation today because it is really quite windy, and in a previous video I explained about how I pick where I'm going to swim, and I'll link that below, the planning an outdoor adventure. I'll link that in the description below. But I've gone through all of that this morning to figure out where the high water is, what the wind direction is, so where's going to be my flattest swim, because I'm after a training swim of 4 kilometres as I move forwards towards that 10k that I've got towards the end of the summer. So fingers crossed it's going to be a successful swim, but I am expecting towards the end of it, although I'll get whipped back with the tide, I will be against some fairly significant wind, so I think that will be a pretty lumpy last kilometre. So I don't know, we'll see how we go, but I think I'll be looking significantly worse at the end of the video when I let you know how I got on with that. As predicted, it is looking pretty lumpy out there, and the windsurfers are having a fair amount of fun out there, but I'm going to get stuck in anyway and see how I get on. I'm pretty sure I can make it around the 4k, but it might take longer than usual, so I'm taking a couple of gels with me to keep me going. Well, about to get in, and it is blatantly very, very windy. This could be action-packed on the way back, but still, worst case scenario, I can always get out, but I'm not going to, I'm going to swim it. See you in a bit. I'm really chuffed with my decision to get in. I've reached the 800 metre point, or slightly further, where I have to switch sides of the spit. And for this first section, I should have been strongly against the tide. But bizarrely, I made that section in about 28 minutes. Normally, in these tide conditions, that would take 40 to 45 because you're really pushing against it. So there's something weird going on with the tide that I've never come across before. So the weird thing that's happening is there's lots of tiny debris, like kind of fluffy seaweed, that's washing over my face as I swam eastbound, and the tide, it should be pushing westbound. In fact, the debris says it is, but on the top layer I was getting whizzed sideways, whizzed eastbound. So that is really odd. I've never had that here before at that state of the tide. It really should be a strong effort to get up here. So not quite sure what's going on there. I asked a windsurfer and they hadn't even noticed. But anyway, lots of people out and about. There's plenty of traffic to look at, and from what I thought was going to be a lumpy and miserable section there is actually been really pleasant, and I'm super chuffed that I came along. What I need to do now is I'll just have a quick drink, and then I need to switch sides and head down there and get in on that side of the spit. So yeah, let's see what this gives. I have no idea what I'm going to be faced with when I go up this way. I'll just show you, but it's pretty windy. So it could be lumpy bumpy, or it could be a barrel load of laughs. Let's see how I get on. Whew. That was a game of two halves. That was really quite tiring. I had the tide against me again on a section where I would always normally get a swoosh. The tide when it's going outbound here is westbound. However, today as I was swimming into it, it was going eastbound. Again, I had all those little bits of seaweed coming at me, and it was a tough swim. I was expecting wind against tide, so it to be a bit of an uphill battle, but today it felt like I was swimming upstairs or maybe through a washing machine. Every time I went to take a breath, the waves were breaking over my head, so that was a bit action-packed. I literally have no idea what was going on with the tide there, because it's always westbound on the way out as the tide's falling, but today it was moving eastbound. So I'm going to look into that, and we're going to, as soon as I find out that answer, I'm going to explain it. So let's go check that out. I need a bit of an internet search on and maybe ask a few people who might know the answer. It's coming up though, because that was a surprise and I'd like to know what was going on. I was so stunned by the conditions I faced yesterday, I thought it warranted a little bit more investigation. So here's a little explanation of where I was swimming. So this is Calshot Spit, this side is the Solent, that side is Southampton Water. I got in at 3:30 and the tide was 4.3 metres, and this was my start point. There was a southwesterly wind blowing straight up here at 20 knots, which is a force 5. So as you saw from the video, a fair amount of wind. So given the tide conditions that I was getting in just before second high, I would have expected some form of tide coming this way as I swam against it. But surprisingly, I seemed to get some kind of a backwind effect where I got pushed up this way, and I managed to swim up there really quite quickly. The next thing I did was I hopped out here, where I was surprised at how quickly I'd done so, to get in on the other side, where I was expecting it to be fairly flat because of the wind direction and it being in the lee of the land. It was fairly flat to start with here, but over here, that's where I started to get waves just breaking over my head. Luckily, I was only breathing on the right, so actually it didn't affect me too much. I just got a bit of a wet face. So I swam down here and around this corner. I was getting a little bit of tide there. I would expect a bit of a pull there. But as I rounded this corner at second high, pretty much at second high, at around about 4:20, I would have expected a really decent pull along the front, which is what I usually get in those conditions. I get a massive lift down here, but there was nothing. I got no extra from the tide at all. So that made me wonder if it was the wind having effect, because certainly the tide was starting to drop, because I could see that from the wet patch on the shoreline. As I got down here, I got about 500 metres of lift, which is over a bar. There's always overfalls there. I've been bumped into them a few times. It's only sandy gravelly, but it doesn't half hurt when you get crashed into it. So I got a 500 metre lift, which I thought, oh, this must be the start of the big lift now, as the tide's really starting to pull out. And then I came straight into headwind, where I was expecting with the wind against tide, that I would be facing chop, so that the wind was fetching up the outgoing water, and it was starting to form crests. And I did get that. It was like swimming in a roller coaster. However, I would also have expected that the residual tide would have given me a pull. By the time I got out at 6:15, you can see how much of a fight that was. It was only 1.8 metres, so it had dropped 2.5 metres during the time I was swimming, but I got virtually no effect of that because of the strong wind. So I took a little look into it. The air pressure was 110.2, which is pretty average sea pressure, so it wasn't the pressure holding the tide in, but I think it was totally the headwind I was facing. And on the way up, the only explanation I can think of is that I had a really decent backwind, and I would never have thought that would affect a swimmer. If you've got any ideas of how this might have happened, please let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know if anyone else has been surprised by getting a lift when they're expecting to push against the tide, or that they've just got no tide whatsoever when it is effectively sluicing out underneath them. That is a bit of a surprise to me. I'm going to look a bit further into it, but this is as good as I can do at the moment for an explanation. There is the one place I've seen it mentioned was in Tracy Clark's vlog about swimming across the Straits of Gibraltar, where the organiser, Raphael, had mentioned to them when they said, great, it's flat and there's no wind. He said, yeah, but you need a bit of a backwind to push you over the Straits of Gibraltar. So that's the only reference I've found so far to getting a backwind that helps you swimming. Let me know if you know any better. I hope you've enjoyed this week's vlog. If you have, please consider clicking on this button above with this little picture of me and subscribing. I'd love to have you along. If you have any ideas in particular that you'd like me to cover, or if you're happy with what's going on, please drop me a comment, let me know how things are going, and let me know what you think about the channel. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, see you next time.